my boss smiled. Congratulations, Camil. We're promoting Rachel. She's a teammate. I calmly handed in my resignation. Thank you for the opportunity. She had no idea what was inside that envelope. More collaborative, I repeated, keeping my voice steady, as my nails dug into the palm of my hand beneath the desk. Across from me, my manager Ellen McBride was seated in her corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. Camila, early 50s, blazer too tight, smile too polished, leaned back, her tone syrupy sweet. Camila, you're brilliant. But Rachel, she has charm. People like being around her. She's simply easier. Easier. Not more capable. Not with more accomplishments. Just easier. I was 41 now. I joined Westlake Strategis at 35, leaving behind a job as a teacher and diving headfirst into corporate life with everything I had. 6 years of midnight reports, last-minute presentations, and salvaging client accounts no one else could handle. I doubled our Midwest portfolio, redesigned a training system, and saved the company nearly $2 million in operational waste. But Rachel, with her lunchtime selfies and carefully curated girlboss quotes, was getting the promotion. So I watched Ellen pretend to shuffle papers, waiting for me to thank her, to be gracious. Instead, I slid a pristine white envelope across her desk. I appreciate the feedback, I said with a calm smile. Here is my resignation, effective 2 weeks from today. Ellen's composure cracked. Camil, wait, let's talk about this. No need, I said. You were clear. And I focus on results. That's why I'm leaving. What she didn't know, what no one had noticed, was that while Rachel had been busy pleasing, I'd been building my own leadership development firm. Fully registered, quietly growing, profitable since Q2. Today, I didn't lose, I simply outgrew the room. Hello. If you felt every word as if it were your own story, don't forget to subscribe and follow me. Because what Camila does next will prove that leaving isn't quitting, it's leveling up. Something that will make their promotion decision look like the farce it truly was. As I walked out of her office, I felt the shift ripple across the river north floor of Westlake Strategis. Heads turned. Conversations fell silent. And I knew Rachel was already imagining where to hang her girlboss poster above my old desk. But I moved with quiet purpose, returning to my space as if it were just another Monday. Because inside that resignation envelope was a second document, one that would make Ellen choke on her artisanal oat milk latte. The next 2 weeks were theater. Rachel strutted through the office with a latte in one hand and the spotlight in her mind. On the 4th day, she leaned over the wall of my cubicle, her lips curled into a half-petulant smile. Hey, Cam. I hope you're not too disappointed. I mean, I know you really wanted that position. I briefly met her gaze as I quietly backed up 3 years' worth of metrics, training manuals, and workflow optimizations. Not to take them, but to document them. Every dollar saved. Every system I designed. Every outcome attributed to my team. I hold no resentment, Rachel, I said with a cool smile. You'll shine. She walked away satisfied, unaware of the foundation beneath those results. 3 years ago, frustrated, I began developing my own adaptive team performance software, not on company time, not with their tools. And last week, the patent was approved. Page 2 of my resignation detailed its impact, millions in revenue and retention, directly tied to my intellectual property. 1 week later, I received an email from Jared Luis, CEO of Architect Solutions, our biggest competitor. Over coffee, Jared offered me more than a job. He offered equity, autonomy, a future. He slid a contract across the table. We've been waiting for someone like you, Jared said, his tone firm, sincere. Someone who understands that results, not appearances, build legacies. As I signed the partnership agreement, something shifted within me. This is what real recognition felt like, not applause for optics, but respect for substance. On my last day at Westlake Strategis, just as I turned in my access card, Ellen called me into her glass-walled office one last time. The polished calm she always carried had cracked. Her voice trembled. Camil, we need to talk about the report you attached to your resignation. She held the printed document with stiff fingers. Why didn't you ever tell us about this platform you built? I sat across from her, slowly smoothing the hem of my navy blue blazer. I did, I replied. 3 separate proposals over the past 2 years. You dismissed them all. You said your priority was improving interpersonal chemistry between departments. Her eyes scanned the pages, the color draining from her face as she absorbed the data: operational savings, automated workflows, predictive project forecasting. And this is patented? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, I nodded. Filed last fall, fully approved. And I've accepted a partnership with equity at RK Tech Solutions. They're already preparing to scale it firm-wide. She exhaled sharply. Architect? Camil, no, you can't. That's our main competitor in the Midwest. What about loyalty? I tilted my head slightly. Loyalty? You mean when you rewarded Rachel's charm over my contributions? Or when you sidelined my proposals because you didn't host enough happy hours? She opened her mouth, but I didn't wait. If you had valued results over office politics, we wouldn't be here. We'll match their offer. Vice President. Just stay. It was never about the title. It was about being valued. As I left, I heard the frantic dialing of the phone behind me. But the damage was already done. If you believe respect is earned, not begged for, and you're ready to see what Camila builds next, make sure to subscribe, because what comes after this is the chapter where underestimated becomes unstoppable. The patent was mine. The ink on the partnership agreement was dry. And as for Rachel, well, she was about to learn the hard way that charisma might open doors, but only substance keeps them from slamming shut. That afternoon, while I was packing up my final things, I saw a sticky note on my monitor: sad to see you go. Stay in touch. Rachel. I smiled, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash. They would be hearing my name again very soon. In fact, the entire industry would. My first day at Architect Solutions felt like stepping into a different universe. Gone were the beige walls and passive-aggressive Slack threads. My new office overlooked Lake Michigan, floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek design, and a nameplate on the door that read, Camil Bennett, Partner, Strategy and Systems Engineering. But the real change wasn't the title, it was the respect. Jared Luis, the CEO, held a full company-wide meeting to welcome me. But it wasn't a typical onboarding speech. Jared told my story. He spoke about the platform I built, its measurable impact, and how it had already changed the way companies operate. Camila isn't here to fill a position, Jared said. She's here to lead a new frontier. Her work has saved millions. It's brilliant. It's proven. And it's only the beginning. At Westlake, I had been a ghost behind the curtain. At Architect, I was the architect in the spotlight. Then, 3 months later, came the moment that sealed it. In the middle of a strategy workshop, my phone buzzed. A message from Terry Henderson, one of the few brilliant minds still left at Westlake. Check the news. Something big just dropped. I stepped into my office and pulled up the headline: Westlake Strategist loses 30% of clients after Q2 system collapse. The article was brutal. Missed deadlines. Ballooning budgets. 3 marquee clients lost. The report described Westlake's internal systems as fractured, outdated, and alarmingly reliant on undocumented processes. But one quote hit hardest, spoken by a former client of mine. Service has collapsed, said Thomas One, CEO of Terranova Solutions. We used to rely on Westlake for enterprise-level integrations. Now they can't even meet basic deadlines. It's like the backbone of their operations has vanished. I smiled. Ted, I was that backbone. The system they had underestimated, dismissed, and handed over to someone with zero understanding of how to maintain it. A second buzz. This time from Tarek: Rachel is having a total meltdown in the break room. I leaned back, sunlight reflecting off the lake and into my office. I didn't need revenge. I had results. If you've ever been fired, sidelined, or overlooked for someone louder but far less capable, subscribe. Because Camille's rise is only beginning, and what comes next will change the entire industry. Rachel had spent years mimicking the competition, repeating buzzwords, smiling her way into rooms she didn't deserve to be in. But now, she was exposed. And Ellen, who had bet on appearance over ability, was watching her decision unravel in real time. Meanwhile, I had bigger moves underway. At Architect, my system wasn't just operating, it was revolutionizing. Project timelines had been reduced by 52%. Customer satisfaction ratings had reached a historic high. Operational landscapes were soaring. Jared had already approved full-scale deployment across all divisions, and 3 Fortune 100 companies were in negotiations to license my platform. They had underestimated me. Now they were scrambling to catch up. One crisp Thursday morning, 6 months after leaving Westlake Strategis, I walked into my office at Architect and found Jared Louis standing by my desk, holding a folded copy of Chicago Business Leader. "Have you seen this?" he asked, lifting the newspaper. The headline on the front page read, "Westlake Strategis announces emergency restructuring amid mass departures and system collapse." I took the newspaper and nodded. I saw it. Looks like they're tearing everything down. They're finally admitting how badly they handled their people, Jared said. They tried to rebuild your platform internally, but they didn't understand the foundation. I know, I said, already aware. They thought it was just code. But it was the logic behind the code that made it scalable. Jared gave me a slow, knowing smile, the kind that comes only from watching the long game play out. "That's why the board voted unanimously to promote you," he said. "Starting next week, you'll be our Executive Vice President of Strategic Innovation. You haven't just improved our systems. You've changed our direction." A warm stillness bloomed in my chest. So this was what recognition felt like, not applause for being agreeable, but respect for building something real. Later that afternoon, as the Chicago skyline shimmered gold in the sunset, an unexpected email landed in my inbox. From Ellen McBride. Subject, apology. "I'm sure you've heard what's happening at Westlake. I want you to know, I was wrong. Dismissing your work was the worst mistake of my career. The board knows it now. They know what you built, and what we lost. I resigned last week. Rachel left a month ago. Turns out results don't respond to charm." I stared at the screen, an unreadable emotion flickering across my face. The validation had arrived, not that I needed it, but it was poetic nonetheless. Ellen's message continued. "I know it's too late to change what happened. But I wanted you to know, you were right. Results do matter. I only wish I had seen it sooner. All the best, Ellen." I read it twice. There was a time when a message like that might have stirred something in me, when even late recognition might have healed old wounds. But that time had passed. In my corner office at Architect Solutions, sunlight glinted off the glass frame that held my patent certificate. Behind me, a polished plaque marked our highest-performing quarter to date. On the bookshelf, a fresh issue of Forbes lay open to an article naming me one of the 10 women redefining tech innovation. Ellen's email was no longer a reckoning. It was a footnote. I clicked reply and typed a single line, "Thank you for your message. You're right, results do matter. I wish you the best in what's next." Then I hit send and looked around my office. Every inch, every ounce of respect in that space, I had earned it. Not given. Not negotiated. Built. The next morning, I called an all-hands team meeting. The room filled quickly, engineers, analysts, designers. Not a single person was there just to check a box. They were there because they cared. Once we were seated, I stood in front of them. "Today, before we dive into our next big launch," I said, "I want to share a brief story, not about strategy or code, but about value. About recognizing it in others, and about never letting anyone else define your worth." Heads nodded. Eyes sharpened. We were now building something bigger, together. As I spoke, I saw people nodding. Their eyes focused. They leaned in, not just to my words, but to the weight behind them. They understood. They saw that this company, our company, didn't run on image or ego. It ran on integrity, on courage, on the belief that quiet strength aligned with purpose builds movements. That night, driving home past Westlake Strategis, I slowed at the traffic light. Their once proud logo etched on the side of the building now looked faded, worn down by time and consequences. A for-lease sign blinked weakly in the fourth-floor window. Downsizing again. But I didn't feel smug. I felt grateful. Grateful that they hadn't seen me. Grateful they dismissed what I had built. Grateful, because by pushing me out, they set me free to build something better. Because sometimes, the best gifts come disguised as rejection. Sometimes, being too focused on results is the very quality that makes you unstoppable. And sometimes, the best way to respond to being underestimated is to build something so impactful, they can't look away. My phone buzzed. A message from Tarek lit up the screen. Westlake's board is asking about you, wondering if you'd consider coming back as CEO. I looked at the screen, then typed slowly, I appreciate the offer, Tarek. But I'm exactly where I need to be. Because real success isn't going back to prove them wrong. It's proving to yourself that you were right. It's standing firmly in your own worth, especially when no one else will. This is refusing to shrink for someone else's comfort, and choosing to rise for your own purpose. And that is where the real story begins. As I pulled into the garage of my Lincoln Park townhouse, I found myself thinking about all the other Camilas out there. Quiet professionals doing exceptional work, constantly overlooked, not because they're incapable, but because they don't shout louder or play the political game. Maybe this story, the one I lived, will reach one of them. Maybe it'll be the sign they've been waiting for. To stop chasing approval. To start building without it. Because sometimes rejection isn't a dead end, it's a redirection. You take the firing, you take the silence, and you turn it into momentum. Into systems, platforms, and legacies that prove you two were always just too much code for them to handle. That night, sitting in my home office, reviewing global licensing proposals for the system I once built in secret, I felt a deep sense of peace. Above my desk, framed in matte black, was the quote Ellen once threw at me like an insult, "You're too focused on results." She wasn't wrong. That focus is exactly what brought me here, to leadership, to innovation, to clarity, to the place I was always meant to be, on my own terms. If you've made it this far, thank you, truly. This story wasn't just about me. It was about every person who's ever been told they were too much, too focused, too serious, or simply not enough in all the wrong ways. If you saw yourself in my journey, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me where you are in your own story. Because I know how lonely it can feel to do the work, get the results, and still be overlooked. I've been there. And I promise you, you are not invisible. You're not imagining it. You're not asking for too much when all you want is to be respected for what you bring. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing, not just to follow what happens next, but to be part of a community that believes in quiet strength, earned success, and resilience without spectacle. We're building something here, for people like us. And if I could offer you one piece of advice, it would be this: stop waiting for permission. Stop shrinking to fit their comfort. Don't let someone else's inability to see your value become the reason you stop believing in yourself. Use their doubt as fuel. Use their silence as space to create. Keep showing up. Keep building. Because one day, they'll realize what they lost. And by then, you'll already be somewhere better. A place built with your own hands. This is your sign. This is your moment. You don't have to prove them wrong. You just have to prove to yourself that you were always right.